As luck would have it, a drover went past that morning taking some cattle to Moffat. He was a man named Hislop, a friend of Turnbull's, and he came into his breakfast with us and offered to take me with him. I made Turnbull accept £5 for my lodging, and a hard job I had of it. There never was a more independent being. When I told Turnbull how much I owed him, he grunted something about one good turn deserving another. You'd have thought from our leave-taking that we had parted in disgust. Some people are crazy. We meander onwards. Driving cattle is a mortally slow job, and we took the better part of the day to cover 12 miles. A cheery soul. The journey. I had no mind for the summer, and little for Hislop's conversation, for as the fateful 15th of June drew near, I was overweighed with the hopeless difficulties of my enterprise. If I had not had such an anxious heart, I would have enjoyed that time. The drover? Hislop was a cheery soul, who chatted all the way over the pass and down the sunny vale of Annan. I talked of Galloway markets and sheep prices, and Hislop made up his mind I was a pack shepherd from those parts, whatever that may be. At Moffat, I got some dinner in a humble public house, then walked the 2 miles to the junction on the main line. The night express for the south was not due till near midnight, however. So to fill up the time, I went up on the hillside and fell asleep, for the walk had tired me. Hopefully you don't miss your train. I all but slept too long and had to run to the station and catch the train with 2 minutes to spare. Alright, so we're on the train! Huzzah! So we're heading southwards. So we're at Crewe again, and we're heading downwards. Oh, maybe there's a change at Crewe. That makes sense. And we go along down the blue line because we're visiting. What's his face? The permanent secretary of the Foreign Office, where we have to say Blackstone and sing Annie Laurie, I think. About 6 o'clock in the evening, a weary and travel-stained being with a checked black and white plaid over his arm descended at the little station of Artenswell. There were several people on the platform, and I thought I had better wait to ask my way till I was clear of the place. So let's move onwards then. I came to a bridge and fell to whistling. I don't know what this tune is. A fisherman had come up from the waterside. He leaned his delicate 10-foot split cane rod against the bridge and looked with me at the water.
Clear, isn't it? I'd back our Kennet any day against the test. Look at that big fella. 4 pounds if it's an ounce. The evening rise is over and you can't tempt him.
I don't see him.
Look, there. A yard from the reeds, just above that stickle.
Ah, I've got him now. You might swear he was a black stone.
So.
Okay, so this is the Walter What's-His-Face.
Twisden's the name, isn't it?
No? I mean to say, yes.
I'd forgotten all about my alias.
It's a wise conspirator that knows his own name.
True. I stood up and looked at him, at the square cleft jaw and broad lined brow and the firm folds of cheek, and began to think that here at last was an ally worth having. Suddenly, he frowned.
I call it disgraceful. Disgraceful that an able-bodied man like you should dare to beg. You can get a meal from my kitchen, but you'll get no money from me.
Evening, Sir Walter.
That's my house. Wait 5 minutes and then go round to the back door.
And with that, he left me. So he's playing it up for the cart driver. I was worried with that at the back door, a grave butler was awaiting me.
Come this way, sir.
I was kind of a bit worried that the cart driver was actually Sir Walter and we'd been led down a false path. He led me along, but the butler, he led me along a passage and up a back staircase to a pleasant bedroom looking towards the river.
Sir Walter thought as how Mr. Reggie's things would fit you, sir. He keeps some clothes here for he comes regular on the weekends. There's a bathroom next door and I've prepared hot bath. Dinner in half an hour, sir. You'll hear the gong.
The grave being withdrew. The grave being withdrew, and I sat down in a chintz-covered easy chair and gaped. It was like a pantomime to come suddenly out of beggardom into this orderly comfort. Obviously, Sir Walter believed in me, though why he did, I couldn't guess. I resolved not to puzzle my head, but to take the gifts the gods had provided. I shaved and bathed luxuriously, and got into the dress clothes and clean, crackling shirt, which fitted me not so badly. By the time I had finished, the looking-glass showed a not unpersonable young man. I'm slightly terrified that he's actually a member of Blackstone, and we're going to be in deep trouble. Onwards. Grave news. Saturday the 13th of June, 1914. Sir Walter's cottage, Artinswell, and there was the gong. Our meal. Oh, fish, by the looks of it. Sir Walter awaited me in the dining room. The sight of him, so respectable and established and secure, the embodiment of law and government and all the conventions, took me aback and made me feel an interloper. He couldn't know the truth about me, or he wouldn't treat me like this. I simply could not accept his hospitality on false pretenses.
I'm more obliged to you than I can say, but I'm bound to make things clear. I'm an innocent man, but I'm wanted by the police. I've got to tell you this, and I won't be surprised if you kick me out.
That's all right. Don't let that interfere with your appetite. We can talk about these things after dinner.
It made me almost hysterical to be sitting there, waited on by a footman and a sleek butler, and remember that I had been living for 3 weeks like a brigand, with every man's hand against me. Then we went to his study for coffee. Ooh, you can't trust him, Hannah. He's offering you coffee. I made up my mind that if I ever got rid of this business and had a house of my own, I would create just such a room. Then, when the coffee cups were cleared away and we had got our cigars alight, he bade me get started with my yarn.
I've obeyed Harry's instructions, and the bribe he offered me was that you would tell me something to wake me up. I'm ready, Mr. Hannay.
I noticed with a start that he called me by my proper name. That's worrying. Yeah, I think going round this... It seems that you start in the top right and go round. That's how you're supposed to do it. Right. I told of my boredom in London, and the night I'd come back to find Scudder gibbering on my doorstep. I told him all Scudder had told me about Karalides and the Foreign Office conference, and that made him purse his lips and grin. Then I got to the murder, and he grew solemn again. He heard all about the milkman, and my time in Galloway, and my deciphering Scudder's notes at the inn. He drew a breath when I whipped the little book from my pocket. I described my meeting with Sir Harry, and the speeches at the hall. At that he laughed uproariously. My day as the roadman excited him a bit. He made me describe the two fellows in the car very closely, and seemed to be raking back in his memory. He grew merry again when he heard of the fate of that ass Jopley. The old man in the Moorhouse solemnized him again. Again, I had to describe every detail of his appearance. There is an England branch of Blackstone.
You may dismiss the police from your mind. You're in no danger from the law of this land.
Great Scott. Have they got the murderer?
No. But for the last fortnight, they've dropped you from the list of possibles.
Why?
Principally because I received a letter from Scudder. I knew something of the man, and he did several jobs for me. He was half crank, half genius, but he was wholly honest. Trouble about him was his partiality for playing a lone hand.
Yes, we'd
That
noticed.
made him pretty well useless in any secret service. A pity, for he had uncommon gifts. I think he was the bravest man in the world, for he was always shivering with fright, and yet nothing would choke him off. I had a letter from him on the 31st of May.
But he had been dead a week by then.
The letter was written and posted on the 23rd. He evidently did not anticipate an immediate decease. His communications usually took a week to reach me, for they were sent undercover to Spain and then to Newcastle. He had a mania, you know, for concealing his tracks.
He got up and crossed the room to a cabinet, bringing back Scudder's letter. Sir Walter, I am in the gravest danger. My worst fears have been realised. My enemies are here in London. They have made themselves known. I cannot write more in case these words be intercepted, but I have found shelter with a good friend who lives near Portland Place. God willing, you will hear from me before the 15th of June. Your servant, Franklin P. Scudder.
I think his object was to clear you if anything happened. But when I got it, I went to Scotland Yard, went over the details of the inquest, and concluded that you were the friend. We made inquiries about you, Mr. Hannay, and found you were respectable. I thought I knew the motives for your disappearance, not only the police, the other one, too. And when I got Harry's scrawl, I guessed at the rest. I've been expecting you any time this past week.
Thank heavens.
You can imagine what a load this took off my mind. I felt a free man once more.
Now, let us have the little notebook.
If he throws it on the fire, we're in trouble. It took us a good hour to work through it. His face was very grave before he had finished, and he sat silent for a while.
I don't know what to make of it. He's right about one thing. What is going to happen the day after tomorrow? How the devil can it have got known? That is ugly enough in itself. But all this about war and the Black Stone, it reads like some wild melodrama. If only I had more confidence in Scudder's judgment. Trouble about him was that he was too romantic. He
These
had
hopeless
the
romantics.
artistic temperament and wanted a story to be better than God meant it to be. He had a lot of odd biases, too. Jews, for example, made him see red. Jews and the high finance. The Black Stone. Der Schwarze Stein. Yeah, it's like a penny novelette. And all this stuff about Carolides. That is the weak part of the tale, for I happen to know that the virtuous Carolides is likely to outlast us both. There's no state in Europe that wants him gone. Besides, he's just been playing up to Berlin and Vienna and giving my chief some uneasy moments. No. Scudder's gone off the track there. Frankly, Hannay, I don't believe that part of his story. There's some nasty business afoot, and he found out too much and lost his life over it. But I'm ready to take my oath that it's ordinary spy work. A certain great European power makes a hobby of her spy system, and her methods are not too particular. Since she pays by piecework, her blackguards are not likely to stick at a murder or two. They want our naval dispositions for their collection at the Marinamt. But they'll be pigeonholed. Nothing more.
There's a trunk call from London, Sir Walter. It's Mr. Reith, and he wants to speak to you personally.
I'm thinking... I don't know what's going to happen, but I know there's a Blackstone, England. We've read that. What if, having found that Blackstone, Scotland failed to kill me, and I'm very resourceful, and obviously with only having himself and a butler probably not being able to take me on, what if instead of trying to eliminate me, he's trying to eliminate the story? So all of a sudden, oh, you can't really trust Scudder, none of this is an issue. And then, what a shame. Oh, if only I'd believed him. Curses. I don't know. Possibly. My thoughts. My host went off to the telephone. He returned in 5 minutes with a whitish face.
I apologize to the shade of Scudder.
Or not.
Carolides was shot dead this evening at a few minutes after 7.
Wait, what? It's too early. I can't do it now. Ugh. Because that was the 13th, wasn't it? So what happens on the 15th? Or what's supposed to happen? I don't know. Let's find out. The Black Stone. Sunday the 14th of June 1914. Sir Walter's Cottage, Artinswell. Muffins! Sorry. I came down to breakfast next morning, after 8 hours of blessed, dreamless sleep. I found Sir Walter decoding a telegram in the midst of muffins and marmalade. His fresh rosiness of yesterday seemed a thought tarnished.
I had a busy hour on the telephone after you went to bed. I
Sorry.
got my chief to speak to the First Lord and the Secretary for War, and they're bringing Roy over a day sooner. Now, this wire clinches it. He'll be in London at 5. Odd that the code word for a sous chef d'etat major general should be porker.
He directed me to the hot dishes and went on.
Not that I think it'll do much good. If your friends were clever enough to find out the first arrangement, they're clever enough to discover the change. I would give my head to know where the leak is. We believed there were only 5 men in England who knew about Royer's visit, and you may be certain there were fewer in France, for they manage these things better there.
Right. Page 1. A logical order to go with. Royer dines with my chief, and then comes to my house, where 4 people will see him. Whittaker from the Admiralty, myself, Sir Arthur Drew, and General Winstanley. At my house, he will get a certain document from Whittaker, and after that he will be motored to Portsmouth, where a destroyer will take him to Havre. Page 3. He will never be left unattended for a moment till he is safe on French soils. The same with Whittaker till he meets Royer.
That is the best we can do. And it's hard to see how there can be any miscarriage. But I don't mind admitting that I'm horribly nervous. This murder of Carolides will play the deuce in the chancelleries of Europe.
Yes, the blame will go back and forth, and da-da-da-da-da.